Hello, everyone. Welcome to the AI Pressure Cooker Live. Today, I'm joined by Gabor Suhajda. It's a special guest, and I'm super excited to have this conversation with him. But just to share for those that are new to this live streaming, what is all this about? I started the AI pressure cooker because there is so much change in the way we are working right now, much more heat, less time, and certainly inflated expectations to deliver instantly and to just keep going. So this series is my attempt to ask and think about those hard decisions behind the pressure and the heat moments, and also talk about the uncertainty, the challenges, but equally the bold moves that are required to lead in this time. And I'm super excited to have Gabor join me today because he's a design leader and a UX educator, so he has a lot of first-hand insights of what is happening. And I'm really interested to find out why is it so hard for teams to overcome the challenge of creating something that looks impressive but fails to be valuable? And to talk about the scars and the lessons that Gabor has gathered throughout the years. So, Gabor, welcome.
Yeah, hi everyone. Happy to be here.
So I wanted to kick off our discussion and bring you to a moment when you realize if you keep going, you're going to scale the wrong thing badly. And can you give us an example or a situation where that happened? And what did you do? How did it turn out?
Well, it was some years ago, not really related to AI, but I think the same patterns happening with AI was that the company I worked for back then was pushing for delivering some new features that the top management wanted to have. But we started to research the topic, understand the user needs around it, and turned out that no one was interested in that kind of feature or generally in that direction of things. Still, they wanted to deliver it. So finally, we had to build it, and it turned out to be not really successful. I guess it's like that with a lot of SaaS products where the team is like a feature factory that they have to deliver a lot of features in a short period of time, not necessarily making sense. I think with AI, it got a bit worse within the same circumstances because you can ship those bad ideas a lot faster. I mean, that can be good in a way because you can validate it faster, but still you sacrifice some effort to build the wrong thing. So I guess I don't know what the learning from that is for designers, because we know that it's a bad idea. Still, we didn't manage to convince anyone to cancel that project.
But I think this in itself is kind of a learning how difficult it has been for design to actually have an equal seat at the table and get leadership as excited as from business. So this the example that you brought, I think anyone listening on the call today is definitely going to relate, because at a certain point in time we've all been on these tables in these rooms where we knew the decision is really a bad one, but it was difficult to win, and we kind of gave in. And now with AI, it's getting really detrimental to speak up and actually properly represent design in these discussions and decisions, because the stakes are high and the consequences can be significantly bad for the business. It's unforgiving right now, the market and the users, with all the expectations and the fast learning that is happening. And the one thing that I'm sorry.
No, I was just thinking about someone said that the designer has this double role of being the optimistic in the team, but also the devil's advocate at the same time. So it's really hard to to balance those little hats on our head, the two at the same time.
True, in a way, indeed, designer could definitely see why the optimism, but also the devil's advocate, which is perhaps the most serious position that design can take right now, with so much pressure to just ship. But in my opinion, this usually leads to kind of a sacrifice and certainly difficult trade-offs to make, because when you ship without judgment, what you get is this
Yeah,
super efficient failure. When you ship without alignment, what you get is internal chaos. When you
yeah. I
ship
mean,
without vision, it's wasted effort. So I wonder, in your opinion, what is the first thing that teams sacrifice in this let's just ship mode? Is it the trust, the clarity, the cost, or something else?
um, I think it comes down to the value that the product can give to the users, and maybe not just that, maybe also some kind of a business vision kind of thing, but but value also ties into that. And mm, in teams where they have designers, they can be the advocate for users and say that, okay, we do this and that, this is how we do it, so that we can create that value for the user that we have a good understanding on, and also considering the business aspects and so on. But without that thinking, like thinking of the value and the value chain and the problems that you're trying to solve with with your solution, it's really tricky to ship something that is meaningful for the users, at least. Really, uh, without those kind of balances and checks. Let's just say, uh, mm, I saw that, like, top level management or founders get excited about their ideas, which might be good or might be on the right track to a vision, but still the execution, or sometimes even the whole direction, might be off because of their some kind of hypothesis or
Mhm.
their assumptions. And yeah, for designers, I think it's really important to understand that. I used to say that, like, designers like to think that they are the most important in the process, and they are important for sure. But I think, and I also think that their role is a bit unique, but not in a way that they have the holy grail of knowing everything and getting everything right. It's more about, not what they ship, not the process, or not the artifacts or the designs. The most important output of a good designer's working is basically the common understanding that they can create within the team, the understanding that respects both the business goals, the vision, the constraints, technological or otherwise, and, well, the user needs as well. So I think that's the most important part. And if, as a designer, someone can understand that and represent this in all the alignments that the teams are doing, then it's somehow turns out to be better.
Oh, absolutely, because at least they're going to overcome this, perhaps the biggest trap of all. When you have speed without trust, you create a super expensive gamble that damages reputation, and this is almost impossible to recover. And picking up on what you said about the designers being the optimist and the devil's advocate, and staying with the AI pressure cooker metaphor for a minute, I've been thinking about, does it actually change in a way the role of the designer? Because with so much pressure and speed, in my opinion, they have two options right now for which they have to be vocal: either to turn up the heat and keep on iterating and shipping faster and faster, or actually push the stop button or the hold button and say to the business, wait a minute, perhaps the recipe has to be changed, and we have to rethink completely differently what are the user needs, the problem we're solving, and the value that we deliver. So do you see differently in the current circumstances that role of the design, or you just think that it's always been like that, it's just now a little bit more visible to the rest of the organization?
Well, I don't think we have to ditch everything we did before. I also don't think we have to do the same thing just faster with AI. I also don't think we have to do something completely different, but definitely we need to adapt. And for that, we need to understand what was really valuable about the design process and how we did things. And for me, it's usually somewhere around like whatever you deliver as a designer, those deliverables are rarely the end result or the value that is necessary, either a design system or the code that someone ships, or even the software is not necessarily the end result. It's just a way to get things done. With that in mind, I think as designers, we need to understand what was valuable in that process, and try to recreate that in the context of AI. So, a few years ago, I used to say that, let's say there was a product that we were working on, and there came the product manager that, hey, let's put a button there, and we designers pushed it back because, like, okay, why that button? What is it a solution for, and so on. And I always try to go through the whole design process, even if that was actually the right solution, but think about for who we are doing this, what is the problem we are solving, what are the constraints, and so on. So maybe it was just a half an hour discussion with two other people in the team, but we basically ran the whole thinking that usually went into even large projects. And I think if we can recreate that in the context of AI, and not forget about these aspects, then the end result is already a lot better. Of course, with these tools, it's easy to like get lost in shipping. But I think we always have to ask why. Why are we shipping that thing? Is it really the good solution? Does it worth the effort, even if it's a lot cheaper than actually building it? Do we really want to spend that time and effort on building, I don't know, in some of the vibe coding tools and then somehow validate it? Not necessarily,
Yeah, absolutely. And also to help the business understand the trade-offs, because as you mentioned, going through the flow, I'm of an opinion, of course, the flow has to adapt, but more importantly, one of the key essence of it has always been understanding the trade-offs of your decision and the consequences.
Yeah.
If you choose flexibility versus transparency or any other big parameter in the design, I think preserving this judgment and shedding light on those hard choices would remain one of the core aspects of design in this age, especially as we move away from the so-called software-driven domain, where things were pretty straightforward and deterministic in a sense. There was a job to be done, a task, and if you click X, you're going to get Y, and the flow was really simple. But now with AI, we are completely moving away from this deterministic behavior into something that is pretty much probabilistic by nature, because input is required, context is required, and on top of it, we know for a fact that the model is going to make mistakes. So the interface is no longer serving as an explanation of towards the user, but it has a completely fundamentally different role, which, in my opinion, is the golden age of design in a way, to actually do all of those things, but in a sustainable and a responsive way. I wonder, how do you see the shift from, especially of how we think about the interface, from this explanation platform to actually the contract
The contract between
the product and the users, especially if the product adopts and has a certain overlay of AI into it. That's where things fundamentally shift, because you cannot you can no longer do it like in the software simple sense of the world. From X you get to Y. Now there is a boundaries and potential mistakes and understanding of what is the best case, but the model may be wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we know who's responsible for certain outcomes of products, like whether deterministic or probabilistic. But usually we like to think that designers are the ones who are, I mean, not the legally responsible for stuff, but at least the ones who are thinking about ethics and potential effects of what a solution might have on the world or on the user. So I think it's a good idea to keep the designer in the team and let them think about those aspects, because it's really like what we did as designers with edge cases and stress cases and all those like not the happy path, and those are probably more important than in many cases to the success and the like to avoid spectacular failures. You have to be sure that those stress cases or edge cases are not hurting anyone. With AI, as we see in the news, it's a lot easier to end on not very happy endings. Let's just say that. So
yeah, totally. And also in the context of this whole notion of co-creation, definitely the role of design is much more visible in the interface right now, to secure the trust, but also think about the experience and think about the change in the behavior, which is a topic that I wrestle a lot, reflecting on what had happened with social media and some of the unintended consequences that we suffered through that. And now with AI, there is a whole unexplored domain of what this would mean, and the responsibility of yet again doing another behavior shift, which is a fundamental new wave hitting not only the younger generation but anyone touching the tool.
I mean, not every company has an in-house philosopher like Anthropic does. So probably the best next person to think about these aspects is the designer in the team, if the team has one.
Yeah, so the arrow is not just nice to have, but it's actually fundamental and detrimental to the success. So I think it's a great time to be a designer.
Yeah, but it's also challenging because I still see that that a lot of companies and non-designer people think about design and designers as people who take care of how things look like the visuals and maybe the experience, but it's a bit more than that. And I guess it can be and is challenging for designers to sell themselves as more than just people working on how things look and work. So it's definitely a challenge, and not just on a theoretical level, but probably on a practical level, because how client expectations or manager top level expectations change towards how teams can ship and how designers play a role in those processes. So it's
Mhm.
exciting, but I think it's challenging.
Yeah, I could definitely relate to that as well. And I wanted to ask you, now wearing your educator hat, since
Mhm.
you teach for many, many years design, is there something that you've seen that people in that domain learn too late, that you wish they would have taken that skill much earlier? What would that be?
Um, Usually, my answer to such a question is business or the business side of things. So a lot of designers or new designers focus on delivering, I don't know, visually polished or methodically polished artifacts like
Mhm.
screens or wireframes or journey maps or whatever. But I think what is even more important than that is to understand the business side of things, like why that solution makes sense for the business. How is this company making money? These simple questions, and how my work as a designer ties into that. How can I help with my designs to for the company to prosper, basically.
Mhm. How do you respond to somebody who would say to you, "Oh, design is so cool, but business is boring"?
Mhm. Um, I mean, your livelihood depends on it, kind of. So, I mean, maybe it's boring, but I think, I mean, for me, it's not boring, and I think like even the most like the domains that are from a distance look very boring. Any topic, if you come close as a designer to understand how those things work in a specific domain, then everything becomes a lot more interesting. So yeah, um, I guess businesses in general is just like that as well. If you
Mhm.
if you come closer to this, and you don't have to be a business person, or you don't have to maybe don't have to make business decisions, but you have to have some kind of an understanding, at least on the level of the company that you work with, or your managers, or the stakeholders you work with. So, and that's, I think, is doable, and have to have the curiosity for that to be able to deliver real value and not just polished artifacts or whatever.
Mhm. Totally. And do you think, in that context, that such a business skill or business understanding, being business savvy, is actually the new UX muscle that designers now have to flex and train rapidly?
Mm, to some extent, maybe yes. What we saw, like in an agency context, what we saw is that because of AI, the sales cycles and the turnarounds with clients are a lot faster, which also means that as a designer, and this is true for some engineers as well, but as those professionals, you have to be presentable for a client or a high level stakeholder. And for that, you have to have some kind of an understanding of business, because as I said, the quick turnarounds doesn't really allow for the communication overhead of someone going to meetings and then translating whatever the stakeholder said to the team and then going back with results. So that's I'm not saying that will completely disappear, but at least in our context or my experience, we as professionals, designers and engineers are more and more involved in those discussions, and to be able to really leverage your skills as a designers, you also have to understand business and speak the language of those stakeholders.
Yes, in a way, design has always been coupled to a large extent with growth, which is the business excitement. But now designers are asked to speak that language as well. I also think to large extent, actually, good design is even beyond growth, because good design is repeat behavior, and the designers are the one that understand the triggers, the reliance, the compounding of the value that they have to protect in order to get somebody to come again and again for those repeat transactions and repeat experiences. And I wonder, as a designer, what would be the core capability that you have to make sure that it exists first in the product in order to get this repeat behavior present?
I mean, it depends on a lot of things, of course. It's a good designerly answer, but
could it be the cost or friction that is top of the list, or something else?
I was thinking about something. I mean, this is just partly an answer to your question, but trying to get there. So I was thinking about maybe I already mentioned that I started thinking that even software is not the solution to many of the problems in the world, and with AI and all those things that you can build and do with AI and automations and agents and those things, you might not need software as a service at large. I mean, in some cases at least, because if you have good APIs and MCPs and automations and agents in place, then it might be enough. So, I mean, it's still really a techie thing to build something like that. But it's doable, and it will be easier and easier for the everyday person as well. Which means that I think if you as a designer or a startup founder try to understand that, then maybe you will move away from this kind of approach that let's solve problems with apps and software, because that might not be the best in every case. Maybe that's like within circumstances, that's the best thing that we can do, but we have to understand that that what is the core problem and what is the best or the possible best solution. Like maybe sometimes it's visionary, but I think it helps to get it better.
Absolutely. And when I was listening to you, it reminded me on this important aspect of design that has always been there, but perhaps to some degree kind of hidden, is this whole reframing and challenging even the premise of the problem as presented. Because
Yes.
if you don't do that, indeed, you end up with something that potentially does a mediocre job, but never fundamentally solves the challenge. And the answer to everything, to your point, is not always a software, or shouldn't always be AI either. But having this capacity to actually demand reset in a way of thinking, beyond just the immediate needs, but to dive deeper into the user space and those unmet needs that are kind of hidden. I think that's certainly a skill that design can contribute and bring to the table, so that we are able collectively to better map that repeat behavior, which is so critical because one-time users is great, perhaps for certain valuations, but it doesn't create a sustainable business. So, and the cost of acquiring these users is really hurting everyone.
Yeah, I mean, it might sound scary, but seems like more and more problems can be solved without any company monetizing on the solution. So that's that might be the case in some aspects.
Yeah, and
Like maybe you don't need a company to build a solution for certain problems anymore, and maybe it's maybe they can do something else instead. I don't know.
that's always a possibility, because indeed it matters. In my opinion, we design carries this responsibility of not only addressing the here and now, but also it's on the hook of those unintended consequences and future users that to large degree we are right now influencing the whole environment of what kind of users are going to be there tomorrow, and how are we going to educate, serve them, and make sure that there is how to say, enough for everyone in terms of sharing the value of what is built, and the equation is not totally optimized for certain key players and marginalize others in return of some of the access of the tools that we are now experience, perhaps at a lower premium vis-a-vis the real cost. But still, there is a slippery slope and sensitive trade-offs that designers owe it, not just to present, but also to future users, to take this responsible stance.
Yeah, and I think if a team or a company decides to ditch designers, or I don't know, skip the majority of the design process, then they might see on the short or mid-term some, I don't know, better results because they can ship faster. Good for them, but then they probably start to realize the problems that they face are ones that could be avoided if they would think in a certain way, and then they sooner or later return to designers to, like, not necessarily replicate the process by the book, but at least have that methodical approach to addressing problems and coming up with solutions to avoid these failures. So
Which also brings me to the topic that what I see right now in the market is that pretty much everyone is into this rush of automating as much as possible, building agents for good reasons, but sometimes for bad reasons. And the question that I actually wanted to ask you, and I know it's a hard one, but still, do you think that teams keep automating things that should have never been automated? Especially when it comes to design and product decisions?
I mean, if I think as a designer, then I guess what I would do is try to automate something, measure the results, and if it works better, then keep it. If not, then return to the previous method or adjust the automation or whatever. So with the right iterative mindset, automation can be good, and you can push the limits of what you automate, or you can have your own principles or values around something that might help you decide what to automate, what to not. So I think that the way you automate stuff is also kind of like a design project. What is the problem that we are trying to solve with automation? Will it solve? Let's validate it, test it, iterate on it. So on that level, I think it is doable, but with the right awareness.
And if I keep a black and white perspective for a minute, is there something that should always remain human? I know perhaps the answer is most likely it depends, but does anything stand out to you that for now we need to protect at all costs?
Hmm. I mean, usually we answer that with things like ethics and some legal aspects, privacy, those things, or things related to those topics, um, or maybe even some key decisions in the process that you want to keep doing with a human. You can do automations that involve humans in the process to make certain decisions. So I guess the tools and the models will get better in these aspects. So probably it really comes down to the quality of those decisions and your values. I don't really see. I mean, for now, because of the quality concerns, probably we need the human oversight in many cases, and also to some extent the orchestration, because you can cover, like we were talking about the design process and all the steps before, during, and after the design process. So you usually need someone to orchestrate the whole thing, even if you automate certain steps or outsource steps to AI or some AI tools. You still need someone to orchestrate those things and oversee the quality, and make some decisions. Think about the ethics, the should we do it at all questions. So
It's
probably those
a
are,
lot of responsibility on top of wearing the business hat. What I hear
yeah,
from you is that designers now
it's just,
also have to be trained in a value system.
yeah, but
Uh,
it's just it was always there. It's just maybe now more concentrated because of the short response time of AI. Like you don't get lost in certain steps of the design process for weeks, because it can be done in minutes. So like these aspects are more concentrated in your daily work, maybe.
mhm. And to your point, now they become more visible because somehow they got lost in between the steps and the activities.
Hopefully, hopefully they are, but this craze about speed with AI, this can cause that you you don't really stop for thinking about these aspects, and
Mhm.
that's probably not a good idea.
If you have one hope or wish for the design industry, what would that be?
Hmm. Um, one hope or
A wish.
a wish. Um, I guess. Wow, it's a really tough question. I don't want to. I mean, I still see challenges around juniors entering the field, junior professionals, either designers or other professions as well. So my hope and wish is around that. So I hope we can figure out a good way to employ those new professionals. I think it's kind of starting to work out, but still it's a big challenge. But I also think that those who are like actually AI native, who grow up on large language models, let's just say that, as we grew up on maybe computers or internet, they will always, like these new generations will always have new perspectives on stuff. So I'm not worried. I just think that it's currently a big challenge, and I wish and hope that we can overcome this.
I hope so too, because a lot is at stake, and as you say, we certainly would all collectively benefit of these different and fresh perspectives that is coming from young talent. So we shouldn't close the door just because we could achieve cost savings in this and next quarter, and
Yes.
really think more longer term and give the opportunity, because all of us at some point in time we've all gotten the opportunity, and I think we owe it to pass it to the next generations.
Yes.
Do you have any final thoughts, something that we didn't cover today that you wish to say before we finish the discussion?
Uh, I have a lot of things to say, so nothing to to highlight in this short time. But yeah, I'm happy to discuss these topics anytime if anyone's interested. So
And I really like your positivity. As you say, the designer is the optimist and also the devil's advocate. So I hope for those listening, this would be something that you can carry forward and make sure that you always wear those two hats in whatever context you work. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in and listening to the AI Pressure Cook Alive. Thank you, Gabor. I really enjoyed the conversation and
thank you,
hope
Meet.
to see you next time.
See you.
Thanks. Bye.